After 2.5 months since my last video, we're back with yet another season upon us. Now, in the last 2.5 months, I really did not care too much about what Barca did in the transfer window. Of course, I followed it a little bit, but I wasn't like actively invested in every saga. Um, I watched a few games of the Club World Cup, really only like the finals, a few of the semifinals, quarterfinals, whatever was there, and I just kept up with Inter Miami for Messi. Other than that, nothing too much, but it's time to talk about the new season now, and I want to start off with my thoughts on Barca's transfer window. Now, I know the transfer market is not closed yet, but for Barca, it basically is because when Barca goes into a transfer window, nothing insane really happens. It's just a bunch of chaos that is unnecessary. So, if we start with the start essentially of the transfer window, it all has kind of started with this moment. So, towards somewhere around like the end of the season or after one of the games, apparently Ter Stegen was supposed to address the fans for something, and he didn't because of his ego, because he thinks he's the GOAT. Now I'm gonna make another video on Ter Stegen specifically again soon because it's required. But my simple comment on him is he needs to like figure it out, and he needs to also not leave himself, but he needs to be exiled from Barcelona and face the consequences of what he's doing and what he's been doing actually for the past 8 to 10 years. But other than that, this is the start of the transfer window, and this is what led to the board and especially Flick, who didn't really like him when he was at Germany, anyways. Ter Stegen, so they had their issues with him, and now they instantly went out to sign a goalkeeper. Now the goalkeeping options were John Garcia, who's now the man that was signed. But they were looking at Lucas Chevalier from Los Lille. They're looking at, I'm pretty sure, Valle from Las Palmas. Emi Martinez from Villa was an option. There's a few options in the goalkeeping department, and Barca opted for Jean Garcia, the young and very exciting option. And they got the transfer done rather swiftly. It happened kind of quickly, like took like 1 to 2 weeks max. I'm pretty sure if I can remember correctly. And look, I think it's a great signing in the terms of having to replace Ter Stegen. It's a great signing. Ter Stegen's been needed to be replaced for many years now, and it's finally been actually done. Chesney wasn't really a replacement; he was more of an add-on for Ter Stegen being injured. John Garcia is the replacement, and that is in regards to Ter Stegen. But as an actual goalkeeper, if he lives up to what he can be and what has been said about him by his former trainers, I think it was at Espanola when he was young, he's gonna be insane. I mean, his reflexes, his shot stopping ability, he is just a cat in the goal. And hopefully, he proves to be an insane goalkeeper for Barcelona and imposes himself in the big moments because Ter Stegen hasn't been doing that for 10 years. So, good signing from Barcelona. Didn't cost too much, but that's our first signing of the window, courtesy of Ter Stegen being a weirdo. Next, we move on to the left wing department. Now, the left wing department had to have been addressed for quite a while now. I mean, last summer they went for Nico Williams. Nico cucked Barcelona, and this summer again, the options were, I guess, Nico Williams, because even though Barca said last summer that that train has passed, we're not going to open the door for him anymore. They did. So he was another option. Kvaratskhelia is already at PSG, so he was not an option. Barcola was an option. They're looking at Luis Diaz because Deco wanted him a lot, and that was also a very explored option by Barcelona. But he ended up costing too much because Liverpool thinks he's worth more than 70 million for some reason. Um, and it ended up being Nico Williams as a main left wing target. Now, you talk about Gerard Romero's report, 150% sure that he's going to be at Barcelona, Nico Williams. Guess what? Also, Fabrizio Romano said, personal terms agreed. Everything was agreed for Barcelona. And then I wake up in Albania. I was in Albania this summer again. And I see the report that Williams officially signs a new long-term deal at Bilbao. Now, at this point, I was dying of laughter. And I was dying of laughter because I know people on Twitter, I know people in general on social media were dedicating so many hours of their lives. They were dedicating their lives to this saga. They would literally wake up and spend all day on Twitter or whatever, Instagram, whatever it is, TikTok, seeing what's the new update about this transfer. And the funniest thing is I wake up one morning, it doesn't happen, and I start dying of laughter because it was just so funny how for 2 summers now, Barca get cucked by a left winger who, yeah, he's good, but you don't act like that for a player like this. And if anything, The fact that the option of Rafael Leao wasn't explored is insane to me. And I'm gonna tell you right now, based on the next signing, but once this happened, Luis Diaz was explored, too much money, didn't happen. Now we move on to who to the next signing. While this was happening with Nico Williams, Barca looking for a left winger, Luis Diaz. Barca going ahead and sign Rooney Bargi from Copenhagen. I think they spent around like 2 million euros on him. It wasn't really an expensive signing. It was more of a youth signing. He was expected to sign for Barca Athletic. I guess he's gonna get a lot of minutes for the first team now and give Lamine some rest when when the time calls for it. But decent signing for a backup, cheap. He's young. If he can improve himself, nice. If he can't, there's not too much of a loss on him. So Barca made that, and then after this signing, it was just a lot of alarm bells ringing for Barcelona. I mean they were looking for a left winger still. They didn't know who it was going to be. Nico cut them again. Luis Diaz was costing a lot of money. They didn't know who it was going to be, but they ended up getting Rashford. Now the whole time before was even signed was Rashford since January was always essentially twerking for Barcelona. Always since January last season before he signed for Villa on loan. Now he continued doing that this summer, and it ended up paying out for him. But he was always on Barca's radar to a degree as a loan option. Whether Barca signed a left winger or not, like an actual out and out left winger, Rashford was always going to most likely be signed because Rashford is not a out and out left winger. He is an inside forward. He can play as a nine. He's essentially a Ferran Torres type player who's a bit better on the wing, who's a bit better overall as a footballer in his prime and what he's shown overall. But Rashford is not the left wing signing Barca is still needs and is looking for. Now, of course, as a signing, this is great loan option. The option of 30 million euros to buy him is a great option to have because it's not expensive in today's market. And if Rashford shows what he can do, which is a lot of good stuff, then that would be a great price for him. My only issue is his salary is a bit too much for my liking in comparison to the rest of the squad. I mean, he's making more than Pedro now. He's making more than Rafinha. I think he's making more than most of the squad right now. And that's my slight issue with the signing. But I guess the compromise was that, he's coming on loan. The option to buy him is an option, not mandatory. And overall, good signing for Barcelona. And he's proven to be very good already in the preseason games. Now, what I think overall is of the whole transfer window is this. Barcelona went to the transfer window knowing that they want a goalkeeper, knowing that they want a left winger, and knowing that someone like a loan option of Marcus Rashford was an option and managed to happen. So as an actual overall consensus of myself based on the signings, um, from myself, sorry, based on the signings, I think it's a good window, but it could be much better. Now, if to take into consideration Barca's finances, of course, La Liga's registration rules are, can't even use a word on YouTube to describe it, but they're horrible. Um, and that's where it limits Barca a little bit in terms of how many and who they want to sign in the market. But where I think Barca should have done better is making sure that left winger signing is completed because it's not completed still. Now, like I said, Rafael Lau should have been explored. Should have been explored. And the fact that Barca hasn't made that left wing signing now means next summer or even in the winter, but most likely next summer, Barca's gonna have to make a left wing signing, which is gonna be a big player because you want your left winger to be an insane big player. And they're gonna have to make a striker signing because this is probably gonna be Lewandowski's last season at Barcelona, and the striker that Barca wants is not gonna be some random talent. They're gonna want Julian Alvarez. They're gonna want Isak if he doesn't go to Liverpool or anywhere else this summer. They're gonna want a high profile, proven number nine. And if you're gonna have to sign a number nine of that caliber in the same window as a high caliber left wing, and you're Barcelona under La Liga's rules, it's gonna be very difficult. Also my other issue is Barca did not solidify themselves in the defensive department. I think another fullback is definitely necessary to give Koundé and or Balde some rest. Yes, Jared Martinez there. He's going to be used more as a center back this season because he's a bit better there. Yes, Barca's giving what's it called? opportunities to the La Masia talents like Joffre Torrens at left back, but signing somebody like Vanderson, for example, from Monaco, who can play on both flanks as a fullback, would have been very nice. It would have been a cheap option for Barca to solidify their defense. And also, I think a center back is still necessary for Barcelona. Araujo is not a proven asset yet for Barcelona under Flick, so you cannot rely on him. Inigo Martinez, yes, he had an insane season, but now he's going to be up there in age, and in general, he's a bit injury prone, so you can't rely on him at all times. Christensen the same. He's actually insane Christensen, but once again injury prone. And Kubarsi is very young to be essentially leading the back line, regardless of who's next to him for a whole season. Now he can do it, of course, but if you're gonna be Kubarsi and then you're next to Inigo Martinez, Inigo gets injured, Araujo steps in, he has a bad game, Christensen steps in, he gets injured again. It's gonna be difficult for a Kubarsi to manage all of that. And I think signing a center back now, I know it's going to be a bit too much to ask for, but if Barca signed somebody like Schlotterbeck, for example, um, that would have been a great addition. Or just somebody younger. If Barca went for somebody like Mosquera from Valencia instead of Arsenal getting him, it would have been a ridiculously good signing because that's a great talent and it solidifies the defense, like I said. So Barca overall, very good signings made, especially the Rashford and the Joan Garcia signings. The Ter Stegen thing, I'm gonna make another video on that because it's required. He is a disgrace. Overall, Barca, like I said, right in this past 5 minutes, kind of lacked in some departments in the transfer window. The main issue now is can they register everybody before the season starts? That's going to be important. And overall, like I said, they're still looking for a left winger. It's not going to happen this summer because they're getting tight on the in the financial you know category. But overall, good transfer window for Barcelona, and hopefully, it's going to be enough for the season upcoming. Of course, there were some departures as well. Oriol Romeo is probably going to leave, but he's still looking for a club. Pau Victor left for a good fee. Fati on loan left for a good fee. And I think somebody else left as well, but there was no big departures for Barcelona. There was a lot of contract extensions for Kunde. I think De Jong also happened, and there's I think Rafinha as well, if I'm not mistaken, and also Lamine Yamal. But let me know what you guys think. Look, it was another transfer window where Barcelona managed to make some signings at least. I would consider Rashford a pretty high caliber signing in terms of what his name is. Yeah, he hasn't been the greatest in the last 2 3 years, but in his prime, what he's shown he can do, decent caliber signing for him being signed as a loan option. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys think. And from now on, I will be commencing and beginning consistently with the videos again. My next one will probably be the Ter Stegen one. If not, it'll be something else, depending on what I figure out. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video.